So it's been just about 2 weeks since I first jumped into reviewing Sony's latest 4K TV, the A95L, and I can definitely see why there's a whole lot to love here. There is a lot to unpack when it comes to a TV like this, especially coming in between $2,000 to $5,000 depending on the size, but it's definitely easy to say this is quite actually one of the best displays available to consumers. That's a bold claim, of course, but you'll definitely see why. For myself, as somebody who's trying hard to spend less time at a desk where I feel compelled to work all the time, it's legitimately a breath of fresh air throwing down movies, shows, and especially games on here. I'm also straight up an everyday user. I don't really calibrate my gear out of box or dive heavily into nits and specs, but as somebody who's an avid lover of all things TV and tech, this really does get me excited again. And obviously a TV of this caliber is absolutely loaded when it comes to features. Coming in at about $3,000 for the 55-inch model, you are getting top of the line specs covering you with a 4K resolution on a QD OLED panel. QD OLED is easily one of the brightest OLED panels available, giving you an incredible image, and if you are comparing this to other TVs, it's definitely noticeable. With this though, you do get that 120Hz refresh rate, as well as both auto low latency and variable refresh rate support. For ports though, you do have a whole whack of just about everything you need to make a home theater setup, including 2 USB ports, as well as 4 HDMI ports. The downside here is that only 2 of those 4 HDMI ports are 2.1 supported, one of which is eARC. Still, for a lot of people, this is perfectly fine. Now, when it does come down to those features, there's almost too much to go over in a single video. I did talk a good chunk about this in my original review though, such as the customizable viewing profiles and the Google Home support. But after 2 weeks, I've been able to jump into testing out the Bravia Cam, and in short, it's cool, but most definitely not really needed. It's a sort of use it or don't situation. Still, I did try out some of the features such as power saving for whenever the camera doesn't detect a presence, it will dim the display, or being able to take a Google Meet call from your couch. Not that I'd really ever do this in practicality, but it's neat nonetheless. And if you have kids like myself, the "you're too freaking close" message that pops up is a good way to teach them not to get so freaking close. And if for some reason you don't want to just use the remote, you've apparently got the ability to use gestures as well to play, pause, and change your volume. In all honesty, I couldn't even get these gestures to work. Not sure if it's just me, my room, or my setup, but in reality, I probably still just use the remote anyways. Again, there's nothing here that's really 100% needed when it comes to the camera. It could be in the box or not, and I'd still be okay. Coming down to how this TV looks though, it's actually pretty nice. While I don't think the back end is all that appealing, it's not particularly something you'll really see either way. There are these VESA holes as well for wall mounting, which is probably what I'm likely going to do within the next couple weeks. Still, the stand on this TV is rather sturdy and it's built pretty well. While I do prefer the way the older stand looks on the previous models, this one does give you just over 3 inches of clearance for soundbar, or you can set it up lower like it is in my setup. And I'm definitely going to dive into how insane this TV when it comes down to media, but first I do want to talk about where I get the most value, and that's definitely gaming. After spending more time with this, I can still say it's quite literally hands down the best console gaming experience I've ever had on a TV. Between both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, games on here are straight up impressive. The fidelity and brightness of this 4K panel is simply beautiful, and it's wild to think how far TVs have come, especially considering we used to have to specifically be on channel 3 just to game. And if you do know what that means, congratulations, your back probably hurts. And as an OLED panel, you get a wildly low response time of 8.5 milliseconds, and while that's definitely not the lowest on the market, unless you're some cracked out superhero, this is pretty much imperceptible. Still, it pairs beyond well with both auto low latency mode and variable refresh rate found on the latest generation of consoles. Both of these features combined really lend to what make this experience so special. But it's not like you don't have these features on other TVs though. What does make this TV better is simply how it looks in action. From FPS games to RPGs, adventure, racing, fighting, and just about any other game. Spider-Man 2, for example, has been out for just a couple weeks now, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that this is a console game. The HDR10 support with the richness and brightness of the QD OLED panel is simply gorgeous. That and the literal blacks on an OLED are still unbeatable compared to any other panels such as Mini LED. And if you're an FPS smashing overlord, you'll be happy to know you can change your black levels and add crosshairs, so it's definitely easier to drop 12-year-olds while playing Call of Duty. Mixing all of this together with the gaming menu has truly given me a 10 out of 10 gaming experience. And even apart from gaming, I've gone out of my way to watch shows and movies on this from a variety of genres. I recently just watched Her from 2013 for the first time. That is such a good film, can definitely recommend. But from a visual standpoint, it's one of those films that highlights both darks and colors and everything in between. I also had the chance to watch Across the Spider-Verse on the Sony Bravia Core app, and this was such an incredible movie to see, especially on an OLED display. And funny enough, this is the first time I've ever deliberately turn down the brightness on an OLED panel. It legitimately gets super bright, especially in a dark room. And for a display like this, I really appreciate having this much brightness headroom for whenever you do need it. Now for myself, I don't really get super technical at all when it comes down to my reviews and stuff. I don't really dive into nits and HDR and all of that, but from an actual user standpoint, everything on here looks damn good. As well, I don't typically change my settings out of box for anything. I've mostly just stuck to the generic cinema profile, but actually tinkering with some of these to suit your preferences is definitely a bonus. I'm just happy Sony actually makes this process easy, and it's awesome to be able to well tailor your experience. And talking about that Bravia Core app again, just want to give it a quick shout out since I really wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I have. I'm not sure if Sony's made this available on other platforms, but the streaming quality is quite literally the best I've seen. And I know this whole video sort of sounds like a love letter, and honestly it kinda is. I've never really had speakers like this on a TV, and they straight up sound like a budget soundbar setup. The speakers are powerful enough to get wildly loud, all while maintaining good balances throughout. And if you are doing a theater setup, you do have ports on this TV that make it so that you can use it as a center speaker. Again, that's pretty wild considering the speakers alone sound like a budget soundbar. And I do want to mention my love for the remote one more time. Again, as an Apple TV fanboy, I've actually just been defaulting to the normal remote since for the first time in a long time, this TV is actually equally snappy to the Apple TV I've grown accustomed to. That and the remote is backlit. Like, come on, quite literally the most simple and basic thing, but it's such an underrated feature that too many remotes miss nowadays at the bare minimum. And from a realistic everyday user perspective, the interface on this TV doesn't suck. Like, it legitimately just doesn't piss me off, and that alone is worth hell of a lot when it comes to TV UIs. Simply, there's limited bloat, it's fast as hell, and it gives me everything I need. As well, you might rightfully be worried about burn-in since this is an OLED display. I can say they do have some features built in that will help prevent burn-in. They have a sort of pixel scrubbing feature, but I haven't found a way to schedule this. This TV also does have pixel moving like most OLED displays, so the same pixels aren't in the same place constantly. In my experience though, this hasn't been noticeable whatsoever. Still, considering this TV is so bright, I do recommend doing the pixel cleaning at least once a week just in case. Now, as somebody who reviews a whole lot of tech and gaming stuff, it's hard to get pumped about certain things, but this TV is easily one of those. The interface, the media, the gaming experience, it's just such an incredible package all around. And while it's almost perfect, it's not exactly there. One of the main things is definitely the lack of 4 HDMI 2.1 ports. While having 2 is fine for a lot of people like myself, I think a TV of this quality and price point should definitely have 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, especially since that is a main offering in other lineups. I also think we could have done without the camera since it is borderline gimmicky. I know some folks might find this useful, but I think it could have been an extra add-on perhaps, which would have cut the price of this TV even by just a little bit. And lastly is the size availability. I'm definitely a big fan of this TV and its big size glory, but I feel like it is a missed opportunity not offering a 42 and 48 inch size. As somebody who's used a 42-inch OLED monitor for a long period of time, I think this could have definitely been an amazing offering. For everything else though, I do still think this TV sets a new standard, and overall, I can confidently say it'll be hard to top this. Truly. In the meantime though, I will enjoy getting through Spider-Man 2 and watching some more movies. If you've stuck around to the end, I'll be replying to legit all comments within the first couple hours, so if you do have any questions, be sure to lay it on me. Anyways, that's been it. Thanks for watching. Till next time.